Okay, so week 4, day 1, quarantine, day 16. I have a lot of leg work today, some cycling, going with the push jerk, and then front squat for our base strength, building on our legs, and then some more cycling with our power snatch, as well as some monostructural cardio in there for our pace work, and then of course some bitch work to end things. I've written out some rough guidelines for how long each piece should be taking you to get through. This is a moving it pace, so if you've been watching the time lapses that I post, I set up all my equipment beforehand, and then I move from station to station, making sure to really continue to move the entire time, not taking long rest breaks unless it's in between sets at one of the stations. So as soon as I finish my push jerk, I pretty much already have my front squat loaded up, or I have an opening weight that I want to start warming up my front squat at. And I'm only taking 1, maybe 2 sets to get warmed up for my front squat before I'm into my working sets. That kind of cuts down on a lot of the extraneous time that it takes for you to actually get through the work. So I'll probably either set up all my stations before I do all of this in here, or I'm setting up my stations as I'm working through these 3 rounds, maybe even for the push jerk, doing a couple of empty bar sets in here after I finish my push-ups during round 2, then loading weight onto it after that, and after round 3 immediately going into some light push jerks before something that's less than that 60%, so that I can then immediately put on more weight and be ready to go into that 60%. And it's kind of the same thing down here with the front squats. My back offsets of push jerks are going to be wider than what I'm going to be working my front squat at. So after I finish maybe this first back offset, I do a couple of front squats, kind of get the legs moving, get ready for this change in movement patterns, and do the same thing maybe with a little added weight right after I finish this second back offset at 3x60 in order to get ready for those front squats, and move directly into that piece without taking a long break, slowing down and losing that momentum that I've built up already in the work. And that helps me move on into the conditioning pieces. I like to immediately start the conditioning pieces so I don't sit there and think about it and dread it. So if I can just continue that momentum from the front squats straight into the power snatches by dropping that weight down off of my rack, or already having it out there in front of me, since a lot of people don't have racks to work off of, I can immediately start into that conditioning piece without really taking a break, maybe a sip of water and then immediately going. But times are laid out here in black, so with the warm-up, I'm excluding the 400-meter run and the mobility part of it in your timeline, so don't start the clock until after you've already kind of like opened up your body and kind of ready to start the work. The work starts with these 3 rounds with the 10 lateral goblet lunges, 10 kettlebell swings, and 10 push-ups. The lateral goblet lunges, a lot of what we neglect in CrossFit is our lateral movements. So I know that Jess at least said that she was feeling it in her groin, and a lot of that's because there's a lot of tax. We tax our groin a lot when we're doing a lot of squatting, but we don't do a lot to actually build up the musculature here on the insides or even on the outsides of our legs. The lateral goblet lunges are kind of geared towards that, not necessarily as a strength building thing for the warm up, but more of to get it moving and loosened up, so that hopefully it's better prepared for when we get down into the push jerk and the front squat, because those are both going to highly recruit the insides and outsides of our legs, and if they're not ready to go, then it's going to be a problem for us. So that should take us no more than 15 minutes, again with that 3 rounds of these 10, 10, 10, but also working in those first couple of either empty barbell or really lightweight push jerks to get ready for this first strength session that we've got going on. So push jerk, 8 sets by 3 reps. That's a lot of sets. It's going to end up being a lot of reps, even though it is a low number of reps per set. It's relatively lightweight, 60, 65, 70%. And then when we get to our actual working sets, these are really the working sets, the 3 by 3 between 70 and 80%. That's going to be a moderately heavy weight. What we're looking for here is efficiency in cycling, either at a high weight or at simulated fatigue. So this is at the very beginning of our workout, so you're not actually heavily fatigued like you would be as if you were at the end of a workout in a competition. So having the weight up there at a heavier weight is really what's going to enable us to simulate that. And the idea here is thinking like as you're trying to push out your last few reps without putting the barbell down so you can move on to the next movement, or you're finishing the final round of the workout. Things that we want to concentrate on here are using our legs, our hips, explosive hip extension, instead of pressing with our arms. We really want this barbell to move a minimum distance. With everything that we see with the Olympic lifting, and then also like our power movements, the stuff that we're trying to use our hips for, we really want to use the hips to move the barbell, but we want to move the barbell as little as possible. So with the push jerk, we're not down and then just pressing with our arms like it's the push press. It's down, up, and then we're getting down underneath of it. So push press, I have to come to full extension with my arms all the way overhead, same distance as if it were a strict press. But with the push jerk, I'm actually reducing the distance that the barbell has to move, and that cuts down on the requirements for shoulder pressing strength. Our shoulders are going to be very fatigued at the end of a workout that has a lot of push jerks in it, but also think if maybe it has handstand push-ups in it, or it has the power clean is what comes before the push jerk, like this is DT, then that's something that's going to very heavily fatigue our shoulders, and we're going to want to rely more on our hips to get the weight overhead than our shoulders. And the less distance that we have to move the barbell, the easier it's going to be for us. So that's what we're looking for with this push jerk, is using the hips and cutting down on the actual distance that we're pressing this weight out overhead. So concentrating on that cycling and efficiency in the cycling. So that means that I'm dipping, my hips coming down, my knees going out over my toes, and then I'm explosively extending my hips, jumping the barbell off my shoulders, and then jumping back down underneath of it, or dropping back down underneath of it, catching overhead, standing, and then pulling the weight back down to my shoulders and straight into the dip. Not down to my shoulders, okay, I gotta get another rep, I gotta get another rep, I gotta get another rep, I don't wanna do another rep, I guess I have to do it after all. And we've lost all that momentum that could have driven us down into this dip so that we could rebound back up. So efficiency in our cycling, which means overhead, pull back down into the shoulders, and then back overhead immediately. So efficiency and quickness in our cycling of the barbell at heavy weight or under fatigue is what we're looking for with the push jerk 8x3. I'm looking for 15 minutes, no more than 15 minutes on this strength piece. If you're starting to kind of like push the limit on things, then we can get rid of these 2 back off sets. Don't really worry about that, and be more concerned about getting warmed up for the front squat, warming up that moving pattern if you have to. So definitely get through these 3x3 working sets at 70 to 80%. And if you have to, you can drop off those last 2 sets and not really worry too much about that. I'm not really so much concerned about the weight. So if you're doing this with the sandbag, or you don't have the weight for your barbell to reach those percentages, that's fine. What I do want you to do is start light and then have heaviest sets. So these 3x3 should be your heaviest weight, regardless of whether you can reach 70 to 80%. And then the 3 before that should be incrementally lower weight, if you can do that. If you can't do that and all you're doing is using the sandbag, that's fine as well. We'll just concentrate on being efficient with our volume. So really concentrating on the push jerk movement and the cycling of that sandbag or barbell, whatever it may be, and making sure that we are pulling back down into the dip and immediately driving back overhead and dropping efficiently. So that should be 15 minutes, and we're going into the front squat. Hopefully you did take the opportunity to knock out a couple of sets of light front squats, get warmed up before heading into strength 2. We're looking for 10 minutes on this, on the front squats. It's 3 by 8, so high volume at a moderate weight for the front squats. Really look at the front squat as a accessory movement for our cleans, for our clean and jerks. The stronger we are in our front squat, the easier it is for us to stand up our cleans and not get pinned underneath of them. But it also builds a lot of hip as well as leg strength, a lot of quad strength, which will carry over to pretty much everything that we do. Strong base means that we're going to be strong throughout all of our movements. We are looking at 8 by 70, 8 by 75, and 8 by 80%. Again, if you do not have the weight, if you're just using a sandbag, or you're kind of capped out on the amount of weight you can use, build through the weight and use the tempo. So 4 seconds down, 4 seconds in the eccentric. So 4 seconds, very slow and controlled coming into the bottom position. A second pause, making sure to maintain that good bottom position. We don't want to have our pelvis tucking under. We don't want to be caving forward, having that barbell drive our chest towards the ground, and then as quickly as possible coming out of the bottom. Especially important with our front squats that we're leading with the chest coming out. If we pop our butt up, we're gonna dump forward, and it's gonna be that much harder to actually recover from that lift and come out of the bottom if we do that. So lead with the chest, driving those elbows as high as possible, coming out of the bottom. And then 1 second pause at the top. Treat these like it's 8 singles where you're not putting down the barbell. So it's breath in, brace, and then back down. That's what that pause at the top is for. So you can treat these like they're 8 singles, just you're not putting down the barbell or taking any rest in there. So that'll be 10 minutes on that. So we should be up to about 40 minutes actually into the workout. And we're heading straight into conditioning 1. Just drop your barbell, drop your sandbag, whatever it is. Get the weight, proper weight on the bar for this conditioning piece. And then we're going to start into it immediately. So you've kind of seen this format already a bunch, at least once in the last 3 weeks, once a week for the past 3 weeks, with the 2 rounds, with a minute of rest, and then 1 round that you're expected to be sprinting. So we want to look at this like it's one workout, one continuous workout. This is how we get better at the conditioning piece if we see the same thing, just 3 continuous rounds. So we'll be able to do these 2 rounds, these first 2 rounds, faster than what we normally would do if it were just a 3-round piece that we were trying to get through 4 times. So I want this to be faster than what you would think of doing for it if it were 3 rounds. 15 to 9 calories on the assault air bike or on the rower. So that's not a lot of calories, but especially for the air bike, it's like at that upper end of the sprint range for calories, unless you're like Mika or Dom, who, you know, touches the bike and pretty much has 15 calories done. So not necessarily a sprint, especially since we have multiple rounds of this, but very fast pace on this this cardio piece. Same thing if you're doing it for a 200-meter run. We don't really like to sprint our 200-meter runs, but we need to be fast and moving with a sense of purpose to get through it as quickly as possible so that we can get to the power snatch. I really want you to cycle this power snatch unbroken. That's part of what we're going for on this, is 15 unbroken power snatch. This weight's going to be something that'll challenge you for that. That's the point on this, trying to get through at least this first round unbroken with the power snatches, and then if we have to end up breaking it up on the second round, that's okay. Not ideal, but it is okay as long as we're going for, as long as we have a strategy with how we want to break that up. So that being said, how do we want to break up this high rep barbell cycling? It is coming from the ground, so that does aid us, and then we can drop it to the ground, and that's where we were going to be anyways. Unlike if it were high rep cycling of the push shirt, if I drop it to the ground, great, now I got to power clean it up and then go back into it to finish. So you're adding another movement in there. That's not the case with the power snatch. Regardless, we're starting from the ground with this. So that aids us. We can drop it from the overhead. I don't want to see singles, but if we can go for like 10 and 5 or like 9 and 6, I really want you to get more than halfway on that first set in there so that the second set is less work when we're higher fatigue, higher heart rate, and our breathing is much more ragged. Same thing with the 15 per side kettlebell snatches. You can alternate this or you can do all on one side. That's really up to you which one you decide to do it on. Whichever one you decide to do here though, when we get down here, I want you to do the opposite so that you get experience with both, whether it's 15 on one side, 15 on the other, or 15 alternating each time, because there's a different skill that goes with that transition as you're coming down, changing, alternating hands, if that's the way that you go about doing it, and that's something that needs to be worked. Because a lot of times we'll see workouts where it is required that you're alternating per hand per rep, instead of being able to do all the reps on one hand and then switch on the ground. So that change from one hand to the other as we're coming past our face, that's something that we need to work on as far as skills go. So high intensity on these first 2 rounds, very short efforts. This shouldn't be taking you like 5-6 minutes. This is something we should be moving through really quickly at a very high intensity. And then we'll take our 1 minute rest, really concentrate on trying to get your breathing under control, and that'll help your heart rate come back down so that we can then head into the sprint for this last round. It is 1 round, moderate reps and moderate weight, especially for the power snatch. You need to be sprinting this. This is as if you're in the final of the competition. Your person that you're tied with for second place is right next to you. The guy who's in first place is on the other side of you, and you're 1 rep ahead of him. You got to keep that lead so that you get first place in that event and maybe put yourself on the podium or move up on the podium if you can maintain the pace here on this last round. So that'll be no more than 15 minutes on that. Really, this is, besides the front squats, this is our focus for today. So if that goes a little bit over, or if you spend a little bit more time laying on the ground, trying to get your breathing under control after you finish, that's fine, because this one is an until failure type of thing on conditioning 2. So bench work, conditioning 2, straight line structural cardio, 500 meter row, 30 calorie on the assault bike, or 400 meter run. We're looking for something that you can complete in under 2 minutes multiple times. I want you to at least get 4 or 5 rounds on this, and preferably no more than 10. If you're getting more than 10, you're probably a bit beyond our capacity here at this gym at that point, I think. That being said, I want you to start off with these distances, and if you fail that first round, or if you barely make the first round, and you definitely fail the second round, then let's knock this back by 100 meters or 10 calories on the bike, so that the next 2-minute iteration, hopefully you'll be able to actually get that time in. So every 2 minutes on the minute until failure, you'll be doing one of these cardio efforts, and really looking for you to be able to repeat your cardio efforts as if like this were built into a WOD somewhere. So like maybe we'll see 500 meter rows in something, but more than likely you're going to have 3 rounds, 500 meter row, and two other movements in there. If we can win the row, that sets us up very well for whatever the other 2 movements are to be able to do that. And really, especially, I would say with the, let's call them the lower divisions of CrossFit competition, like the rookie, the scaled masters. Winning at cardio sets you up huge to win an event because there's such a huge difference in what people are good at. I mean, like the higher you get in things, you end up having like in the RX divisions, you know, everybody's pretty much about the same speed at this, and it becomes who's stronger or who's faster in a road, and a lot of who can just gut out the win rather than who is a better conditioned athlete, because they end up being all about the same conditioning, the same strength, so it becomes a mental game more than anything. If we can win cardio, we can probably win an event. So that's really what we're setting up ourselves for on this. Yeah, a lot of talking. One other thing, I know I already touched on this in the group chat, make sure that everybody's paying attention to this, your recovery. I did set out times on here that I want you to be trying to meet. Regardless, like this is if you're pushing yourself through this, really moving with a sense of purpose throughout the entire thing. So training with intensity, that doesn't just mean that we're going hard on our conditioning pieces. It means that we're maintaining a focus and we're continuing to move through the pieces, not, oh my God, woo, that really wore me out. I'm gonna sit here for 20 minutes and stare at that barbell. Do I really want to continue with this? Not really sure. Because that not only takes away from our ability to get through here, our motivation, whatever, but like as we're sitting there cooling down, that ends up giving us diminishing returns on our performance in each of the pieces. So continue to move through everything with that sense of purpose, and if we're driven, if we have that focus, we're going to get more out of the programming on each day. I'll say I don't want you to be spending more than 2 hours on any piece. At that point, we're kind of at a level of fatigue where we're not going to get anything more out of this. Not necessarily physically fatigued, but also mentally fatigued, and we can't really, you've already shown that you're not really focusing on things if it's taking you that long. So what are we going to get more out of this if you were unable to get it done in 2 hours? If maybe there was just too much work for that day, I still want you to cut it down to 2 hours and take like 4 to 6 hours break in between, and then you can come back and try to finish things. But no more than 2 hours work at a time, and then definitely get somewhere between 4 and 8 hours of rest, like actual rest, not, oh, I then went on a 4-hour hike and came back and tried to do it. But 4 to 8 hours of actual rest in between efforts if you want to come back and try to get a piece and finish off the work for the day. Also, if you're falling behind, if like you didn't do any of the work from last week, okay, that's behind us. Leave it behind and start fresh on today. If you can't do today, you have till Thursday morning to get it done. That doesn't mean do this on Thursday morning and then Thursday night, do Thursday night's work. I still need you to take some rest in between these because they are going to require a lot of effort and intensity out of you. But I don't want you to keep piling things on top and then us reaching a point where we've overtrained ourselves and we end up hurting ourselves. So just a couple of days to get each day's work done. If you can't get it done, move on to the next day. So nobody should be trying to finish any of last week's work this week. That's all behind us. Yes, you're behind, but you're going to fall further behind if you try to get all that done before you get in on this. So this builds progressively. This just means that instead of building from last week, we're building from the week before. We've been doing push jerks, we've been doing the squats, and we've been doing these pieces like this. You're just going to, instead of building off of last week and going that much faster, that much heavier, you're building off the week before and going a little bit heavier than that week or a little bit faster than that. Make sure you're taking your 2 rest days per week. Please make sure that you're resting. There's a ton of programming being put out there for you. gym's got their programming, their Zoom WODs. I'm giving you programming. You need to rest. You need to take care of your bodies. Make sure that you're stretching. Make sure that you're foam rolling. If you can, take an ice bath. Apply heat to anything that is hurting, elevate it. You know, go through all those things that you know that you're supposed to be doing that you're probably not doing. You need to take care of your bodies, especially now when you're not here for me to get on to you about taking care of yourselves, or you're not showing up here where the foam rollers are and you've got a bunch of people laying around working on different body parts that'll encourage you to do it. Like, the majority of us are out of work and have the time to do it, so instead we're sitting there on our couches watching Netflix, Tiger King, and not doing things to make ourselves better, to improve our lives, to improve our body functions. So that's something where you also need to find some focus and intensity to work on as well on those, not just off days, but also after you've finished off the work or before with our hip and pressing mobility today. These are things that you need to continue to work on because they build on one another. And if you're not doing it, then we're going to reveal weakness later on when we're at high intensity under a heavy weight, and it's not going to end well. So that's it for today, I think. Send me your questions, comments, complaints, and your money if you haven't already. I'd appreciate that as well. If you have any concerns about things, or you need to get some further direction on how to knock out things, please let me know, and I'll try to answer your questions as best I can. Thanks.